Hi, everyone. Welcome. So happy to have you here. Hopefully you're in the right place. My name is Lisa. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the founders of the Peace Leadership Collaborative. And my colleague Kaleem, who you can see here, we're both going to be hosting this session today. So thank you, Kaleem. We're really excited to have you here. As you saw, the topic for today is peace leadership in action. So we've got a great group of peace leaders and scholars here to talk to us about what we mean when we talk about peace leadership. And then we'll open it up. And, as always, these gatherings are meant to be a space for dialogue and for learning from one another. So we'll have a chance to hear from you about your experiences with peace leadership. So we're really looking forward to that. Before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the Peace Leadership Collaborative for those of you who don't know us. And as I'm doing that, I welcome you, if you haven't already, to introduce yourself in the chat. So tell us, who you are, where you're calling in from, what brought you here, if you'd like to share that. Feel free to do that as I'm talking. Don't mind. So for those of you who aren't familiar or are still new to the Peace Leadership Collaborative, we are still quite a new organization or group. We just started last year, and we're very much still in the startup phase, which is exciting and nerve-wracking and all lots of things. And so what we're aiming to do as a group is to become a global hub for peace leadership in the world. And so it's a pretty big mission. So some of the things we're hoping to do specifically is to really promote the understanding and practice of peace leadership around the world. We also want to bridge the gap between theory and practice. And so we really want to, again, bring together people who are studying peace leadership, who are researching peace leadership, with people who are actually peace leaders practicing in communities, and to create more connection, to create a more kind of equal collaborative space for people to come together. And then thirdly, is to create really a space of, belonging and learning and sharing for people who are practicing and studying peace leadership around the world. And so that's part of why we're here today. So we've started organizing these quarterly gatherings. They're an opportunity to bring people together, for us to learn together and from one another, and to also share our own experiences. And so that's why we're here. We are, as I said, an emerging organization. We're led by a group of volunteers at the moment. If anyone is interested in getting involved, I'll tell you some more ways to do that at the end of the call. But in case you're not able to stay to the end, just to say that there are opportunities and you're all welcome. I'll put my information in the chat. So if you're ever want to reach out to share your interest, you're very welcome. So thank you again for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Kaleem, who's going to lead the rest of the program. So, and please introduce yourself, Kaleem, before you dive.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you very much for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kaleem Hussain. As Lisa mentioned, I kind of joined the team of the Peace Leadership Collaborative a couple of months back, and just part of this initiative to really bring it to fruition in the near future. I'll also be part of the Euphrates Peace Practice Alliance program, which I completed last year. So I class myself as alumni, that wonderful program. And it's great to be part of this session today. We do have wonderful panelists to join us today to speak on the topic. So the purpose of the first part of this session is really focus on, what we mean by peace leadership. So to clarify what we mean by peace leadership, but also creating space to show the diverse ways upon which peace leadership is practiced. So as I mentioned, we have three wonderful speakers, panelists who are specialists and have expertise in their own right. We have Ugo Egbuta, who's joining us, Lazarina Tupazova, and Tarek Laker, who are joining us. So before we go into our session, if I can first ask Ugo Egbuta to just share a bit about your background and, around peace leadership, or just peace in itself, that'll be appreciated. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kaleem. Just as the intro, am I audible enough, please?
Yep, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Just as you introduced, my name is Ugo from Nigeria, where I live and work, and was also born in Nigeria. So I've been in Nigeria all through my life. I studied electrical and electronic engineering, but beyond that, I have passion for peace building, and my work centers on leading little ones, children and teenagers, to the way of peace. I practice teaching them non-violent ways of communication and building their character for them to be better peace leaders in the future. So that's practically the peace work I do. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ugo. I'll now turn over to Lazarina Tupazova to briefly introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm actually very excited to be here because I've known about the collaborative for a while, but this is the first time that I'm actually connecting in person with everyone. So I'm so glad to be here. I started out as working in the field. I worked with refugees. I worked in post-conflict, in the Balkan conflicts. And now I'm in academia. So the piece I do about peace leadership currently is mostly thinking and writing about. I teach organizational leadership at Robert Morris University, which is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, over to Tarek Laker to briefly introduce yourself. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Kaleem. Hi, everyone. My name is Tarek. I'm also part of the collaborative. And perhaps my engagement with peace building has been for over, I think, a decade now, since it started. I come from Syria, and obviously I lived through the conflict, and that's what got me interested in peace building. To the point now that I'm here in the UK after I finished a master's degree, that I'm lecturing and talking about my experiences through all sort of events like this one, and also a TEDx event that I did last year as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the panelists for your wonderful introductions. So now I think we're going to go straight into the heat of the first part of this session and really just reflect on what we mean by peace leadership. So the first question I'm going to open to the floor is, how would you define peace leadership? Please feel free to chime in. In terms of when you look at the term peace leadership, what does it mean to you, and how would you look to define that? So if there's no first, I can ask Lazarina, your thoughts on that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that was a good idea to ask because you can imagine I have a definition. So here we go. So peace leaders are those who influence others to achieve positive peace on individual, structural, and cultural levels, and who have the knowledge and skills to practice peace by peaceful means, use a holistic approach, and incorporate a global perspective.
Right. So we got elements there: positive peace, holistic approach, looking at it from a global perspective. Those are the kind of key strands that you're kind of developing from that particular, into the defining peace leadership. If I was to turn over to Ugo yourself, your thoughts on, how would you define peace leadership?
Thank you, Kaleem. When I think about peace leadership, I try to look at my everyday life as a member of communities with so many diversities in beliefs, in religion, in ideologies, just so many diversities. I look at my everyday life as a woman navigating through traditional rules, gender issues, even my personal belief system. As an employee that has to deal with balancing between work and life, priorities, and as a family member dealing with family expectations and my personal goals. And then even as being myself, I constantly conflict with myself, lack of energy, self-doubt. So I look at all these elements, and at the center of it comes peace leadership. Whitney's model describes this center as the meeting points, the point of intersection of skills and practices of inner work, knowledge, community, and environment. So all these elements in peace leadership, all the elements of our entire whole being, none of them is neglected. They are all carried along. So personally, this is what peace leadership means to me, not neglecting any part of it, every element that makes my whole being as a system, including the entire ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's really fascinating. From the one side, we've had Lazarina giving us a definition that we could potentially work with in terms of the holistic aspect and the global aspect, and then Ugo now really homing in on what it means at a practical level in terms of personalizing and kind of bring that to fruition. So over to you, Tariq, your thoughts on this particular. How do you define peace leadership, and what your thoughts are on the particular question? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think I can echo what's been said in a way, and to me at least, like in theory at least, I would say peace leadership is the ability to influence, inspire, and guide individuals, groups of people, organizations towards achieving a sustainable and lasting peace, right? So it's more of just going beyond the stopping of the armed conflict. It just includes the promotion of justice, the healing of traumas, and the building. Sorry?
No, I think there's just an echo. Please continue. Just an echo. Something. Yep. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, the healing of traumas, and and building resilient communities. So to me, if I could perhaps touch on my experience back home in Syria, I would say it was because it was difficult, because we had a very kind of difficult social fabric as a result of the conflict. It's been very much damaged. So peace leadership involved a certain commitment to rebuilding trust, to rebuilding social cohesion. We have to kind of we had to think about facilitating reconciliation processes, honest engagements between the different parts, different groups. We have to kind of support thinking about justice and accountability measures, and very much this has been very tricky and difficult to do, because obviously we still have been in a conflict, in an active conflict. So kind of trying to talk about leading peace while the sounds of bombings is happening everywhere, or sounds of bombs and explosions happening everywhere, has been very, very kind of tricky thing to do. However, we should have always, I think, in my opinion, strive to kind of do something in a way or another to kind of and implement community-driven initiatives and projects that address these disparities even throughout the conflict.
Thank you very much for that, Tariq. I mean, what I extrapolated from what you just said there is you're almost kind of touching what you call the virtues of peace. The multiple strands that come together to really be, how we should orientate ourselves despite the difficulties and challenges of our, stimuli or environment that we may find ourselves in. So thank you for your inputs on that particular question. The next question that I would like to now for you to kind of ponder on is, what distinguishes peace leadership from other forms of leadership? So I know I started with Lazarina first time around, so I'm going to play around a bit. So I'm going to go to Ugo. So what distinguishes peace leadership from other forms of leadership? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'm looking at the traditional leadership strategies. I think it's all about the destinations. The destination could be a milestone, it could be just that target, it could be a particular goal, and when that goal is achieved, the leader is happy. What now happens if the goal is not achieved? So in a peace leadership, it is more of a journey, and in this journey we build relationships, we build bridges. In the journey we embrace our ups and downs together. So peace leadership is self and people oriented and also environment oriented. That is what distinguishes it with other forms of leadership.
Right. Thank you for that. And if I would ask Lazarina, your thoughts on what distinguishes peace leadership from other forms of leadership that we have out there. So when you have people saying that's the orientation, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if I will have to sum it up in one phrase, that would be the peaceful means, because there are a lot of parallels we can draw between peace leadership and, say, authentic leadership or servant leadership, right? And many others, you can find a lot of similarities. But I think that the challenge with peace leaders is not only to recognize the complexity and that we have to work on the individual level, on the structural, on the cultural levels, but we have to do that every day with authenticity and with humility, because the whole thing about peaceful means and nonviolence is not very easy, right? In all of our contexts. So I think that is the difference, I guess, the challenge and the privilege of being a peace leader.
Right. Thank you for that. And over to you, Tariq, your thoughts on this particular question, distinguishing peace leadership from other forms of leadership.
I can think of quite a few perhaps distinctions that I can share with you. The first one perhaps is that I think peace leadership is more focused or perhaps deeply rooted on and founded on ethical principles, such as fairness, justice, non-violence, right? And these principles should, in theory, guide virtually every decision and action taken under the definition of peace leadership. The other thing that I can think of is perhaps peace leadership involves conflict sensitivity, because if you think about it, all leadership perhaps styles involve navigating challenges, but necessarily peace leadership specifically requires a very acute sensitivity to the dynamics of the conflict, to the historical, the cultural, the social elements that of a certain community or society we're trying to work and perhaps lead or inspire people to practice peace. I can also think of peace leadership that it requires inclusivity and an approach participating in, or perhaps encouraging participating approach, to include as many people, as many different groups as possible, rather than perhaps just having a few or a small number of individuals taking action. And I can also perhaps talk about the focus on long-term solutions. So it's not necessarily just trying to look at the short term only and just give up after the short time not having something, because it's a very long process. So perhaps it's more focused towards long-term solutions. And of course, also, building on the conflict sensitivity part is also we have to have emotional intelligence, high levels of empathy, and the capacity perhaps for innovation, for creativity, and creating this space that will allow people to be part of this process, the process of building peace, of course.
Thank you for that. So what I seem to be getting from that is the orientation to more towards sustainable peace, as in that's the direction of travel. So I'm really intrigued just to kind of probe this a bit further, because as part of the question, he has other forms of leadership, and as compared to peace leadership. So we can look at the university, the Harvards of this world. They'll give you various training manuals in terms of how to go about being a good leader out there. And we touched on some of these, the ethics, the virtues, etc. So I'm kind of just probing this a bit further, as in saying, why peace leadership then, compared to the other leadership models? So I'm just opening it up for any of you to potentially just, share your thoughts on that. Why peace leadership compared to the other leadership models that are out there, with all the universities that are, the school that you can learn this from. What distinguishes this particular form of leadership that we should pay heed to and pay attention to? Any thoughts, anybody?
I can talk a bit about this. I mean, yeah, as you said, there are tons of different definitions for leadership, and even peace leadership, you know, is very much different across different cultures, different countries. Even within the same country, you have different definitions. And I think, in a way, perhaps why should we kind of encourage this sort of, as I told you, as I alluded to have this kind of space for innovation and creativity, and for people to share, because peace is different to each one, right? We definitely have some sort of principles that we share, but at the end of the day, it's different how I view peace. Obviously, for instance, in an armed conflict is going to be different than, let's say, building peace in Iceland as opposed to Syria, right? So we have different views, and we have different lived experiences, and of course this, combine that with different communities, different societies, different social structures, and governance styles. So all of that, will create a radically different approach to peace. So and I think the universities have developed that idea, many ideas, and they are great. But sometimes these ideas should perhaps be tailored and tweaked a bit to match the dynamics of a certain community, rather than just taking it as face value, if that makes any sense.
Thank you. I saw your hand up, Lazarina. I think you want to come in on that.
Yes, and I'm going to try to sort of keep it short, because asking about theories in leadership is like maybe my favorite topic to discuss.
Right.
But the thing about theories of leadership and approaches that are done mainly in the North is that they originate and are confined within a system that itself is violent. Does that make sense? So why is peace leadership different? To add on to what Tarek was saying, is we're trying to create a culture of peace. And this is a long-term process. And even though there are many leadership theories that think about the long term and maybe changing that culture, peace leadership focuses specifically on bringing on that culture of peace, on nonviolent approaches, on justice, on being culturally sensitive, on bringing in indigenous knowledge that has not always been welcomed in academia. So that's why I would say peace leadership is very important, because it is looking outside of the paradigm, and it's looking to change that paradigm.
Thank you for that. So we've come from Tariq saying the contextual, the lived experience, the cultural sensitivities. Hugo, yourself, any thoughts on this particular question? I've just probed it a little further. Yep.
Okay, just to make it short, because most things have been said already. Because peace leadership pays much attention to communication, that means it unifies more than other forms of leadership, and it's both present and futuristic in nature. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm going to come on to the next question that I would like to ask the panel members is, what does it look like to practice peace leadership? So, the visualization, the practicalization of it. So I'm going to start with Tariq this time. Practicing peace leadership. Yeah.
So yeah, I talked a bit about that in my previous answers, but to kind of talk a bit more, especially coming from my own personal experience, I would say the first and perhaps the most important one was practicing active listening, right? So truly hearing the needs, the fears, the hopes of all stakeholders involved in the process, right? Especially, back home, it's a highly stressful and dangerous situation, but it's equally important to practice active listening as much as possible, because it just builds the foundation for virtually every single step along the way in this peace building journey. The second thing is, again, I talked about a bit, is empathy and patience. So because when we talk about conflict, we talked about we should address the pain. We should understand where it's coming from, the losses, that and the conflict, the conflict produces, and these are like scars that people carry on with them for virtually forever, right? So we have to kind of approach these interactions with patience, with compassion, in order to actually have a very productive dialogue, right? Which brings me to the third thing, which is to work as hard as much to facilitate this dialogue, right? To encourage open communication between the conflicting parties, to kind of set the scene for negotiation if it's on a higher level, or just on a community level. It's just to be just open space where people can share, where people can talk about their losses, talk about their hopes, their fears, of course, in a very kind of safe space and safe environment. And lastly, I can perhaps think of to have resilience and adaptability, because obviously working in this field is full of setbacks and challenges and dangerous situations. So definitely a peace leader must adapt strategies as situations evolve, change, and remain kind of adaptable as much as possible in the face of all of these problems a conflict may throw at you.
Thank you, Tarek. Lazarina, what does it look like to practice peace leadership, the practicalization? Your thoughts on that?
So early on, Ugo mentioned that being a peace leader in everyday life and in the family, that's important. So I have 2 young kids, and trust me, every day I have challenges with that. But I also wanted to talk a little bit more about my professional identity, right? So what does it mean for me to be practicing peace leader in my classroom? And that's not easy, because the educational system is not necessarily a very peaceful one, right? You have hierarchies, you have different rules, and rarely justice and nonviolence. But what it means for me is always try to keep sight of all the aspects, right? So the personal, where I'm practicing behavioral integrity, and I do what I say or what I teach, right? And I try to use nonviolent communication. I practice fairness and patience and empathy, which again, we know the challenges of that every day, but also bringing in all the other levels, talking about structural violence and injustice, and working on different cultural assumptions. So for me, peace leaders are serving as a bridge, right? A connector. They do a lot of work on themselves, but they also influence the environment and the communities, and they try to make connections for others, right? So the biggest challenge for me as an educator, though, is when I have a classroom that has people that have no experience or very little experience with nonviolence or nonviolent ways to respond to conflict. How do I model that? How do I tell people that they have different choices? How do I offer different choices? And I think that's the work of peace leaders, to be able to provide different choices to people who may not have that experience. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, it does very, very much indeed. I mean, that is very powerful indeed, in terms of having the connection with your communities, the connectivity aspect, and then the choices to orientate people towards the alternative options that are there, which they may not potentially see are there. So that's really a very important point that's been made there. Ugo, your thoughts on what does it look like to practice peace leadership? And I know some of your comments you already touched on it, but please do elaborate if you feel free to do so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Please, you people should permit me to use one typical African proverb to drive my thoughts here. And it says, the earth sweet melody for those. The vibes practicing peace leadership gives is, this vibe of tuning the heart to the rhythm of the inhabitants of the earth. And it's actually a very sweet experience is a type of symphony that unites diversities. I also want to use this opportunity to, permit me to divert a bit. I want to tell you people one amazing practice, amazing culture in my community of origin. Once in a year, a whole week is dedicated to peace. They call it Week of Peace during a New Yam festival, and it's a practice that ushers the community into their own new year. So this culture starts with the first day of it's a 7 days festival. So the first day starts with a sort of love feast, where every member of families cook the local delicacies and take this food to the oldest man in the clan. So something happens here. Everybody is expected to eat together. And before you eat together, the expectation is that if you have grudges against anybody within that clan, you cannot share a meal when you have grudges. So this particular practice teaches forgiveness. So the space is given for everybody to forgive in whichever way I have offended you and in whichever way you have offended me. For us to be able to eat this meal together, we have to forgive each other. So that is the first day. Then another amazing thing that happens is all through the week, there is no work. Everybody is expected to rest. The elders sit around some beautiful trees and tell stories to the younger generation, stories of their good experiences and even the bad ones, and even fairy tales, things that didn't really happen. So now, I remember as a little girl in one of those times, myself and my parents visited our community. So I did something very bad, and my father was supposed to spank me. The stage was already set. So I was scared. All of a sudden, he just looked at me and said, "You are lucky that this is Week of Peace." So on a lighter note, this Week of Peace also saved me from getting spanked. So what this culture has taught us over these years is forgiveness, unity, and rest. These are elements of peace leadership. So I give it to the elders of this community for them to keep this culture alive over these years. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you very much. That is so powerful. I think you touched on a very important point about the principle of forgiveness. And especially today's age, we always think the macho element is to respond, isn't it? That's the kind of for the males out there, the testosterone kicking in, etc., etc. But that a lot of the ethics and the virtues that we learn in peace leadership training is actually it's the one who's able to remain patient and forgive. That is a more higher station than the one who decides to go on the pathway of revenge, etc., etc. So the very powerful points that you made there.
Thank you so much, Kaleem, and thank you for leading us today. I really appreciate it. It can be difficult with lots of new people, so you did a great job. Thank you, and thanks everyone for being here. This is only the second of these gatherings that we've organized, so we're really excited to have you here, and we hope this is the first of many times that we come together for conversation. So I put a link to our feedback form in the chat, so please do give us feedback. We really appreciate hearing from you and seeing how we can improve in the future. And I know we'll try to incorporate more opportunities for you to talk to one another in the future as well, in future sessions, and to learn from one another. And just to say, we actually really love that there are people from coming with all different levels of experience, all different types of experience from different geographies. That's really what we're all about, is bringing people together. We think everyone has strengths and lots of experience to share. And so we're happy to have you all here and welcome you. So thank you so much. As I said at the beginning, if you're interested in getting involved, there's lots of ways to do that. You can join our mailing list. You can become one of our volunteer members. You can, if you have a group or an organization and are interested in partnering us, you can do that. We are now on social media getting started, so follow us.